Aloha, my name is PJ, and this is Weekly Sports Update on ThinkTech Hawaii. First day of the Major League Baseball draft took place yesterday with no local players being drafted, but today 2 local boys went in the 5th round. Of course, high school sensation Ian Kahaloa out of Campbell High School was selected in the 5th round by the Cincinnati Reds, while St. Louis grad Kai Tom was selected by the Cleveland Indians, also in the 5th round. Of course, on the big stage is the NBA playoffs. The series is tied at 1 game apiece. LeBron James went for 39 points, 16 rebounds, and 11 assists, and became only the 2nd player in the NBA history with more than 35 points, 15 rebounds, and 10 assists in one NBA playoff game. The other, of course, being Laker great James Worthy. The series now moves back to Cleveland, and only for the 2nd time in NBA history has the home team been an underdog in a playoff game, and that being the Warriors in the 70s against the Los Angeles Lakers. The NBA playoffs will resume at 8 o'clock Eastern Time tonight. Tune in. Thank you for joining Hawaii Sports Update and the Sports Weekly Update. Anyway, let's move on to some more important things here. I got my man Justin here, and also Star-Advertiser beat writer Brian McInnis. I don't know, how come I always have trouble saying that? Same thing with Billy.
You're consistent, man. That's all that matters.
There we go. And Brian, the last time that we were talking, of course, it was was almost mid-season, and we're talking about Benji Taylor and the circumstances that were going on. So let's move from there to here. But first off, do you think Benji got a fair shake?
It's tough, PJ. I think he believed that he did not get a fair shake. I mean, that was reflected in his comments immediately when the coaching search was concluded and Eran Ganot was hired as the coach. You would maybe think by his 22 wins, by them reaching the conference championship game in the Big West, that he would get a fair shake, and by all accounts, he was in the group of finalists, a handful of guys being considered for that job, for the permanent post going forward. But ultimately, the indications I got were that he was not maybe amongst the final 2 or 3, and other guys with clean, slates coming in from the outside were really the ones being considered.
Okay, now when you mean clean slates, what is exactly clean slates?
Right, just a guy like Eran Ganot who had no ties to the previous regime, the Gib Arnold regime, and was not around when all these alleged violations occurred, even though Benji Taylor was not directly alleged in any of the things directed at Hawaii and at Coach Arnold and Coach Brandon O'Connor. So, I think Benji may have liked his chances at times, especially when they got on some of those winning streaks. 22 wins, that's no small number.
Absolutely. Okay, now moving forward, Eran Ganot has been hired now, and give us a little bit about his background and why you feel that he's a good hire for the University of Hawaii.
Yeah, he's a young guy, 34 years old. That puts him 33, 34, right among the younger ranks in Division I college basketball. But he is a guy who spent a few years at UH as an assistant coach under first Riley Wallace as director of operations, and then full assistant under Bob Nash. And he's been around the college game, pretty much since he was a player at Swarthmore on the East Coast. Okay. Division III school, but he did just about everything there. Worked his way up from a volunteer assistant, made a lot of friends along the way at UH, got a chance at St. Mary's as a full assistant coach, a very successful program under Randy Bennett. Was a full assistant there for 5 years, and then, got his chance here, maybe a little ahead of schedule, a guy only 33, 34.
Okay.
But you gotta, respect that he's put in the work to get to this point.
Absolutely. Okay. Now, Negus Webster Chan has decided to go pro. Has there been any word or any innuendos about the possibility of anybody else leaving or anything like that? Have you heard of any possibilities?
Well, PJ, I mean, losing Negus, that was a tough blow for the team. I mean,
right.
you could see his talent, many points during the last season. He, I think statistically didn't have the season that a lot of people hoped he would.
Right.
But he was their most efficient three-point shooter, made the most threes on the team.
Absolutely.
That's the one thing he did fairly consistently from start to finish when other parts of his game, you know, driving to the basket, getting to the free throw line, weren't really there yet for him. Maybe he could have come along with another year or two in college under his belt.
Okay.
That being said, he decided to go pro. Has yet to latch on, you know, with the team, to my knowledge. He was about to hire an agent last time I spoke to him. So wish him, you know, good luck. Canadian native, maybe he latches on in Canada or maybe the D League at first. I mean, the draft is still to come, but, you know, he's not in the draft. And honestly, his numbers wouldn't, you know, back up him actually going in the draft. So
Right.
as far as other guys you asked, I haven't gotten any direct indications that anyone else is going to leave early at this time. I mean, there's still plenty of time left in the offseason.
Right.
I know Coach Gannat really was trying to focus on bringing everybody together, keeping everybody here who was part of last year's team. I mean, strong nucleus of guys, starting with Roderick Bobbitt at point guard.
Okay. And do you feel that Negus Webster's chance departure was the repercussions of somewhat of Benji Taylor leaving, or do you feel like that once that decision was made, that he really felt that was his best decision to go forward and try to go pro?
You know, I think UH would have been hard pressed to keep Negus no matter what, perhaps, whether Benji had stayed or whether, you know, Iran or somebody else had come in. Iran, I know for a fact he, you know, put in his time individually with every guy on the team, tried to sell them on the vision of what he hoped to put together and what they could, you know, aspire to with this kind of new system that Coach Gannat's trying to put in.
Okay.
Coach Gannat really values shooting, and then, like we said, that's one thing Negus did especially well, but I think maybe the pull of some advice he was getting from back home around Toronto was maybe too strong. You know, it sounded like his mom really supported his decision to go pro, and like I said, I wish him the best of luck. I would have liked to see what he could have done with another year or two.
Absolutely. You know, he is definitely going to be missed around the campus at UH. You know, he was a guy who could stretch the floor, you know, with his length and defend multiple positions also. But let's talk about now some of the recruits, or the two recruits that Iran Gannat has now came up to. Tell a little bit about who they are and what their background is and what you feel like they're going to bring to the table for UH this year.
Sure. Well, but they're by no means done recruiting. Coach Gannat is still bringing guys in and out. They can still hand out, to my knowledge, 2 more scholarships. Okay. They did have the one reduced scholarship from self-sanction, but still 2 more, I believe, at this point to hand out to prospective recruits. The first guy they did sign was a guard named Bryce Kanda out of Central Wyoming College, 6'4", so he's got good size at point guard. And a guy who really worked on his shooting over the course of his career from high school to get to this point, wasn't known as a good shooter coming out of high school in Portland. Okay. So he's really a guy who's had the reputation of being a hard worker to build himself up, you know, wasn't recruited at all out of high school. And Coach Gannat is, like I said, values shooting, and based on his percentages, he's hoping that's something that could translate to D1. Okay,
now with these other 2 scholarships that are available, what do you feel that Gannat should be trying to fill, and what do you think that they need with those 2 scholarships?
Right, so the other guy they are about to make official is a guy named Sai Tumala, who was a forward at Arizona State.
Right, exactly.
Has 1 year of eligibility left.
Yes.
6'6", you know, guy who can shoot the 3-ball, but also be pretty athletic inside, work the boards a little bit. He, you know, seems like a good get for them. So that bolsters their front line some, but to your question, I still think they could use a little more size. But honestly, they could use a little more guard depth as well. You know, Negus Webster-Chan, kind of more of a natural 2-3. I mean, that is a hole that you have to replace. And whether it's a guy like Aaron Valdez taking another step, or, you know, Bryce Kanda becoming a major rotation player in his first year here, I think they could use another body or 2 there. I mean, it's honestly at this point, PJ, it might be best player available.
Okay. And you know, what needs do you feel? That's sort of part of the question that you answered. But I mean, what specific needs do you think that they need to fill, like, immediately? Somebody coming in, the Negus Webster-Chan spot going out.
Right. I think they have reasonable depth at point guard now. Maybe at the 3 spot, Aaron Valdez, like I said, he's a guy that they counted a lot on last year to, rebound, to shoot from the outside, to slash. They could maybe use a solid, guy to back him up there, perhaps. Okay. Whether that guy is Sai Tumala, we shall see, how Coach Gannat wants to use him.
Right.
But, Coach Taylor also talked about needing a good post banger to back up, a guy like Stefan Jovanovic or play alongside him, perhaps.
Right, right.
There were times where he didn't quite trust his big man at the end of games. We saw that in the Big West tournament, and it was very, very much a small ball lineup at that point, and worked pretty well to get Hawaii to the championship game. They just it ultimately did not quite work in their favor by the end of that game against UC Irvine.
Okay, and speaking of small ball, what role do you feel like Isaac Fleming's going to have coming up this year? As this guy made some spectacular drives to the hoop as a freshman and was pretty much a prolific scorer for the latter part of the season for them.
Sure.
So what role do you feel that Isaac Fleming is going to have coming up next year?
Yeah, no question. Isaac Fleming showed a lot of potential in spurts last season. He also showed some, his share of freshman moments. I think that's a diplomatic way of putting it. But with another off season of just weight training and skills development under his belt, I think he could make a pretty major leap in year 2 if he buys into what Coach Gannat really is trying to sell for his players in this program. I think we could definitely see Isaac Fleming, develop into a major player in the Big West if things break right.
Okay, and now you say Coach Gannat emphasizes shooting from the outside. Can you do you know exactly what his philosophy is, defensive-wise, or anything like that?
He hasn't spoken too much in depth about his schemes or whether he prefers, say, man or zone or that kind of thing. I suspect we'll see a bit of both. But offensively, he's a guy who really likes the San Antonio Spurs. I'm a little biased. I'm a Spurs fan, but he's mentioned that specifically. I mean, he's got guys like a Patty Mills who went from St. Mary's to San Antonio.
Okay.
He knows that coaching staff, so he's talked about really kind of trying to mimic their sense of their skill at ball movement. Finding the open man, making that extra pass, and we'll see if the team buys into that kind of brand of just unselfish to a fault basketball. Okay.
Well, hey, if you're at home and you're listening live and you want to chime in, you could tweet us live on the show at ThinkTech HI. We're here with Brian McInnis, beat writer for the Star-Advertiser, and Justin Baptiz. You can chime in with any question anytime you get ready, So if you want to tweet us live, come on and tweet us live here at ThinkTech Hawaii. We're going to go on a little commercial break, and when we come back on the other side of Hawaii Sports Update, we will be talking a little sanctions with Brian McInnis.
Aloha, my name is Miley Scarpino, and I'm the host of the Empower Hour. If you're interested in health, nutrition, fitness, here on the island of Oahu, want to learn more about places to train at or different trainers available, then watch my show on Fridays at 3. We have a great time, and I hope that you'll come join us. Much aloha. Now go get swole.
Hi, Jay.
Hi, Keith.
My name's Keith Bettinger.
I knew that.
And I'm the host of ThinkTech Asia.
I knew that, too.
Here on ThinkTech.
Fabulous. You got a great show going, Keith.
Thank you very much. And for our viewers out there that are interested in ThinkTech Asia, it airs every Tuesday from 4 to 4:45, and it can be accessed online at thinktech.com.
Yeah, so what kind of guests you like?
Well, we have a number of guests from academia, from practitioners of international affairs. Sometimes we have military officials. Sometimes we have public officials on the show. And our goal, we try to talk about current issues in South Asia, Southeast Asia, East Asia, and Central Asia, all throughout the Asian realm, in more depth than you would find in traditional mainstream
That's the
media.
difference, isn't it?
Exactly.
That you're reaching out beyond what ordinary news media would do.
Right.
That's why we like you so much.
We're trying to provide a thinking person's perspective, an intelligent perspective on what's going on, and we're both sides of the story, or even when there's more than two sides, we try to cover every angle. And I think that's one of the big benefits that we provide here at ThinkTech. It's a really innovative source of educational programming for the people of Hawaii.
You're great, Keith. You were a great host. You got a great show going on. I watch it every week.
Thanks very much.
Why don't you guys watch it every week too, okay?
4:45 to 4 to 4:45 every Tuesday.
Welcome back to Hawaii Sports Update, and if you just joined the program, go ahead and hop on your Twitter and tweet us at ThinkTech We're sitting here with Star-Advertiser beat writer Brian McInnis, and of course my right-hand man Justin Baptiz chiming in on the conversation. And before we went to commercial break, we were talking about some sanctions. So Justin, you want to ask him something about sanctions?
So with the sanctions being done with UH, we know that they've lost practice time. We know that they've lost, the probation that they're on. Do you feel like with the loss of practice time, do you feel like it's going to prevent them from doing big things this year?
I don't think so, Justin. It comes out to about an hour a week. And I do believe Coach Gannett is the kind of guy who will try to make use of every single, moment he has with these guys. I think last year, Coach Taylor's philosophy to tie in with, some tough scheduling that they had was to let the guys rest at times, with everything that surrounded the team, all the controversy and that kind of thing. It was often a hands-off philosophy, but I think it'll be very hands-on this year with Coach Gannett. And maybe missing an hour a week might, hurt him a little bit, but honestly, I think that the big one is the loss of scholarship, one scholarship for the next couple seasons. And maybe to a lesser extent, the director of operations not being able to attend basketball practices. And like you said, they are going to be on 1 year probation, so they do have to be sure not to have any missteps in that meantime.
And that probation, you think, is really hurtful of this team?
As of right now, no. It just means that they have to be careful over this time period coming up. So Coach Gannett has the reputation of running a very, tight ship, at least when he was an assistant, of doing things by the book, knowing the rules inside and out. And I would expect that he would do that starting his coaching career, for however long he's here.
Okay, now with these, we discussed this before, with these imposed sanctions, do you feel that when the NCAA does come with what they're going to come with, that maybe we might have eased up some of the damage by doing that?
Yeah, they had to, based on the advice, legal advice that UH had been receiving. They've paid some pretty good money to know what to expect based on what was alleged at them and what they needed to respond with. So based on that advice, we saw what UH put out as their self-sanctions, like those items that me and Justin were just talking about.
Okay.
Now, whether that's enough, we'll see next month when the Committee on Infractions meets with the two parties, UH and then Coach Arnold, now that he's, separate from UH. He has his own defense to prepare, and he's also trying to make his own, case right now. He's kind of trying to shift public perception a little bit, based on, some of the hits of reputation he's taken based off of this.
Yeah, and didn't Dave Rositas come out with a statement? What was that statement all about?
Yeah, Davis Rositas, the former UH center, played his whole career under Gib Arnold, starting at USC when Arnold was there as an assistant, transferred to UH when Coach Arnold became the head coach here. So Davis came out with a prepared statement, sent out to some members of the media, including myself, over the weekend, basically, standing up for himself and Coach Arnold. He was very, adamant that compliance was at fault in some of the result of all these, this months-long saga, that it wasn't just all Coach Arnold's fault, that, there were some missteps taken along the way. Whether that's true, I mean, we'll see what the NCAA ultimately decides.
Are we talking about administrative missteps?
Right, in the compliance department, Davis mentioned there was that incident with the borrowed car. Specifically, that's what a lot of his statement had to do with. And, we'll see if that ultimately sways anything. I know some, fans have kind of reached out and tried to back up Davis on this and point the finger at UH a bit based on that. So, myself and Fred Lewis at the newspaper, we're going to kind of address that coming up shortly, perhaps in even tomorrow's newspaper, and how that fits into the bigger scope of, Gib and UH kind of fighting this battle for public perception behind the scenes, and Coach Arnold, like I said, trying to shift things in his favor right now.
Okay. Now, what is exactly Gibbs Arnold's situation? I mean, you know, what are the pros and cons of his case? I mean, it's basically coming down to him saying that, you know, the three associate coaches who he was supposed to be, you know, overseeing the practices are basically lying, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a very perhaps contentious, you know, different accounts really clashing. I mean, from all we know, we haven't seen Coach Arnold's official response to the NCAA, but the gist of it, we know that he takes issue with almost everything that UH put out as its version of events.
Right.
And those different accounts are going to have to be, you know, settled in some way in Indianapolis. And it might not be easy to know exactly who's exactly telling the truth and who's got maybe most of the truth. UH, I know, feels it has a number of witnesses on its side to back them, and
Right.
I think Coach Arnold's trying to kind of circle the wagons and rally, you know, what he can right now and get the best, you know, accounting of what helps his case. So
Right.
Stakes are high for him as well. I mean, besides that 1.4 million, you know, that he says he's owed from UH,
Right.
they had the, it's going to arbitration. There's also the fact that he could get a show cause order by the NC2A potentially if he's found, you know, at fault by all these allegations that were pointed at him for, you know, kind of obfuscating the truth and making the investigation harder than it needed to be.
Right, right, and that, I mean, that's also on top of the fact that he was involved in that, the USC stuff back in the days too. I mean, that, you know.
He was there at the time, you know, he was
Right.
never found directly implicated in that, and Coach Floyd was ultimately exonerated by the NC2A in that,
Okay.
in that matter with, you know, O.J. Mayo and that
Okay.
whole thing, but he was there, and you could make the argument that maybe the NCAA, you know, was not inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt because he was present at least, you know, or at least on the sidelines at a school while they were conducting an investigation prior to UH.
Okay, now, when you hear the rumors of Gib Arnold feeling like, you know, that they were out to get him right from the start, I mean, what do you say to that kind of stuff? And does he have anything to substantiate that?
Well, I think he must feel like he, you know, with the DeVise statement, I mean, that's kind of, I think, falling under the umbrella of him trying to shift public perception right now, even though that was, you know, signed off by DeVise Rositas. We know that Coach Arnold has reached out to a number of his former players and coaches to, you know.
Schamberger also.
Right. Schamberger came out with something on social media that Gib had reached out to him to try to, you know, maybe perhaps back Gib and the fight to come. So we know this is happening behind the scenes, and we'll just have to see how it ultimately shakes out. But it's an interesting time, PJ. I mean,
Yeah.
it's obviously a first for me being kind of the guy who has to try to catalog some of this stuff as
Right.
it's going down. And,
Right.
it's interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little bit of a tough gig, huh?
Comes with the territory.
There you go, man. Just on a general feeling, man. I mean, you know, which way do you think this is going to go? I mean, like, you know, is it just going to be a bunch of blaming back and forth? I mean, what is written down and substantiated that, you know? I mean, you have an idea of what's going to happen, right?
You know, I think my best guess, PJ, would be that the NCAA will accept UH's self-sanctions, will not. My best guess, like I said, I don't know this for sure. It's all speculation until it actually, you know, gets hammered out. But that they will accept what UH put down on the table and won't add anything significant to the sanctions that UH has already put on itself. As far as Coach Arnold, if the NCAA upholds, you know, what it alleged at him and it finds no reason to, you know, rescind some of those allegations, it could be pretty brutal for Coach Arnold. I mean, as far as college coaching, he could be done
Right.
if that's all upheld. And
Right.
on their own, each of those allegations, you could say maybe are not that serious, but the severity level 1, level 2 was because, like I said, they alleged that he obfuscated the truth along the way, told people, you know, what to say in various interviews, and tried to get everybody on the same page that, to the NCAA's point of view, was not the truth.
Absolutely.
And so he could, you know, go to the pro ranks. He could maybe go overseas. There's been rumors that he's going to try to latch on with an NBA team in some capacity. So
Okay.
like I said, it'll be interesting to see where
Right.
all the chips fall.
So, I mean, if he just would have been forthwith and just, you know, just came clean with what he did and not try to manipulate people, then it wouldn't have been so severe.
That's what the NCAA alleges, that, you know, he did all those things, and you could make the argument that if, you know, they had been forthright in coming out and just kind of owning up to some of this stuff, that, yeah, maybe it would have been a slap on the wrist, but we're past that point now, so
Okay.
it's all kind of moot in that respect.
All right, now, just finishing up on the sanctions, you know, even the way that the NCAA does it, and, you know, the Give Arnold era, so to say, is cleaned out. And now, you know, I don't think that the kids now should have to suffer from something that happened before, and I think they have to sort of fix that somewhere in between, you know. I mean, what's your feelings on that?
Well, you know, the reduction in scholarship does slightly handicap Coach Gannott's flexibility in recruiting. It is ultimately one player less that they can give financial aid to, but when it comes to, you know, sending out feelers to multiple prospective recruits at once, you have to kind of scale it back a bit, because ultimately, if, say, 3 guys suddenly say, yeah, we want to commit to you, suddenly, you know, you don't have 3 scholarships, you have 2 right now.
Right.
And then you have to, you know, do that dance and take the best guys you can, and, you know, maybe it'll be a little uncomfortable. So that's something that they'll probably have to scale back, and at least for the next, you know, 2 years, that's the duration of the scholarship reduction. But like I said, Coach Gannott's still bringing guys in and out. They're still trying to build his new culture with his new coaching staff that he recently completed. Guys, you know, he knows and trusts. So we'll see what kind of, you know, rhythm those guys get going by the end of this offseason, because they did get off to slightly a late start. There were a lot of, you know, recruits that are off the board at this point. So they're trying to work their connections, bring in who they can, and just kind of bolster that still pretty strong nucleus of guys they got from last season, and see if they can maybe make a run of the Big West again.
Okay. Now, with that being said, that leads me right into my next question. What should we expect from UH this year and in the next couple of years? You know, just not the you know, 4 or 5 years down the line, but just in the next couple of years. I mean, are we in a rebuilding process? Do we get a break because of the Give Arnold thing, or should we expect 23 more wins or 22 more wins this year?
It's, you know, it's a tough situation for Coach Gannott, PJ. I'll fully say. I mean, it's tough to follow 22 wins, you know, winning a couple Big West tournament games as a first-year coach, because Coach Gannott has almost the same cast of characters that Coach Taylor had to work with. And nothing was really expected of them, especially once everything kind of blew up around them, and they surprised and shocked a lot of people. You know, I'll say right now, I mean, I'm not one who thought they would do what they did.
Right.
And hey, like, you just got to kind of tip your cap to Coach Taylor and those guys, but now it's on them to see if they can do it again in a different system. Not going to be easy. I know there'll probably be a little growing pains there as the players get to know Coach Gannott, and Coach Gannott gets to know their different personalities and skill sets, and those are things he's going to try his best to kind of hammer out this offseason before they actually get going in earnest. So there's going to be plenty of challenges along the way. I don't know if we can expect a 20-win season right off the bat. Hey, that would be outstanding for him, honestly. There's still a schedule to hammer out. We don't know exactly who's going to be there on the non-conference schedule yet. So a lot of work to be done. Coach Gannott's not one to shy away from hard work. So we'll see if you know, that ethos kind of carries them through some tough times.
Okay, well, there you hear it. Live from Star-Advertiser writer Brian McInnis. We are here with Justin Baptiz and Brian McInnis. If you have any tweets, go ahead and tweet us at ThinkTech. We're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back on the other side of Hawaii Sports Update, we will talk some more hoop talk with Justin Baptiz and Brian McInnis.
This is Alice Lee Hagan, host of ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. My show here at ThinkTech Hawaii is every Thursday from 3 to 4 in the afternoon. I bring in interesting guests from Hawaii, the mainland, and hopefully international guests in the future. Do join us on Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. Aloha.
Aloha, I'm Hunter Hevlin, host of Sustainable Hawaii here at ThinkTech Hawaii. You can tune in every week on Thursday at 2 p.m. to see interviews with sustainability professionals from around the state and even further abroad, learning about activities with water management, food security, waste management, and a whole host of other fascinating opportunities to get engaged with making a greener island. So if you're interested in making the transition from consuming individuals to communities of producers, check us out every Thursday.
Aloha and welcome back to Hawaii Sports Update. If you just left us or you just tuned in, we're here with, let me say this correctly, Star-Advertiser beat writer, Brian McInnis. All right, I didn't flub that one. And my man, Justin Baptiz, of course, talking about some of the sanctions that were going on at UH and with new head coach Eran Ganot moving forward, what we expect out of the team this year. And, you know, just talking UH hoop talk. And, you know, what do you feel that the main thing that Eran Ganot brings to this program that's going to help it move forward?
You know, he brings a squeaky clean, I guess, resume. You know, he's not a guy who's gotten into any trouble. St. Mary's did have some probation they had to work their way through, but that was all based on things that occurred before, you know, Coach Ganot got there, and he was credited for kind of carrying them through some of the, you know, suspension of Coach Bennett for a handful of games. Coach Ganot was the guy who coached them through that.
Right.
And he's a guy who's well respected amongst a lot of people in the athletic department. I think that carried him a long way in that hiring process, and may ultimately be the reason, you know, those connections he made, the reason why he's sitting where he is today.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to the machine, the Twitter machine over here. This is the first tweet on my show, and so whoever this is, you know, you're making history, man. And it's, of course, from last week's guest, Mr. Billy Hall. And it says, "Hi, Brian, I love your work. Do you expect the new UH basketball coach to schedule tougher non-conference games?" Go ahead and take that question, Brian, please.
Yeah, thanks, Billy. It's mutual. Love your work. My coworker, who was hired full-time the same day I was, a handful of years ago. But Coach Ganot's hands might be tied in this first, you know, non-conference scheduling. There are a lot of holes to fill. Late stage of the game here to try to get some marquee opponents in. They do have a tournament in Vegas with 2 non-conference road games at Cal and San Diego State, which are going to be incredibly challenging games. We'll see if that actually is on the schedule by the time they finalize things. I've heard they may want to get out of that. We'll see how that goes. Mm-hmm. But as far as bringing you know, non-conference teams in, they do have Nevada with their new head coach. That may end up being one of the biggest names to play in the Stan Sheriff Center.
Oh yeah.
But like I said, there are a lot of holes to fill. We may see some low majors coming in just based on who's left, you know, who's available, that UH can maybe give a small guarantee to fly out here and play a standalone game or two.
Okay.
So I think Coach Ganot will ultimately be judged on the scheduling for year 2 and beyond. I think as of right now, it's just do what you can and play who you can play.
Okay, and you know, for those of us who don't really follow, who's coming up in the Diamond Head Classic, you know, in the next year?
Yeah, there's some respectable teams. I mean, Auburn with Coach Bruce Pearlie's,
right,
you know, making an appearance. Wazoo is coming back, and
okay,
you know, you got quite a number of good mid-majors. It's maybe one of the better fields overall. It's never been a weak field.
right.
But they've got the right mix of, you know, strong mid-major teams as well as a few power conference teams that, you know, have that name recognition. I think Auburn could definitely be one of the headliners of this field coming in. And,
okay.
You know, it's never been easy for Hawaii in that field. Always seems like they get paired up with a pretty strong team in that first round. You know, they did get 3rd place last year with Coach Taylor. I mean, that was considered a pretty big breakthrough.
Absolutely.
To go 2-1 and get that 3rd place, you know, recognition. So if they can build on that this year, that would be pretty big for them, considering that's always where the best teams they play generally are.
Okay, and now, you know, look, okay, go ahead, Justin.
And where do you see UH ranked as far as in the Big West? Because you know UH for this season was ranked at a level where they shouldn't have been ranked at. Where do you see UH ranked as far as a preseason?
Right, so they were picked in the 5 or 6 range
Right.
last year, and obviously by the end, where they at least finished in the conference tournament, they finished better. They were about 5th place
Right.
in the regular season. So as far as they'll be picked for this coming year, we'll see. You know, there's still a lot to be sorted between, you know, players they can bring in, if there's any more player attrition, guys leaving early. Other teams around the Big West are still jockeying and you know, playing that recruiting game as well. So a lot of times teams are voted strictly based on who comes back. You know, the media just kind of looks at who averaged what, and then they pick them accordingly. But I think Hawaii could be picked in the top half just based off what they did. You know, maybe fourth in that range, maybe. Teams like, you know, Long Beach and those guys always seem to have pretty good talent. They're always kind of there in that top 3 range. I mean, UC Davis does lose a lot, but they surprised a whole bunch of people in taking the regular season title last year. So somebody could come out of nowhere like that again. You know, we'll see. They got a lot of guys back from injury at the right time. Corey Hawkins was lights out pretty much all year. So, you know, the Big West, there's no one dominant team like the West Coast Conference with Gonzaga and that kind of thing. That any year, one team that has it all come together like UC Davis could conceivably go all the way.
Okay, now, you know, with Roderick Bobbitt, of course, leading the world in steals last year, and, you know, with him coming back with his senior leadership, Yankovic and Aaron Valdez turning into juniors, I mean, we know what roles do you feel that those 3 guys are going to have, and how important is them being healthy, and you know, are they the 3 keys to the success for next year's team?
I do think it starts with Roderick Bobbitt. I mean, like you said, 100 steals even, led the nation in total steals. I think you got to let a guy like that, you know, roam free on the defensive end. Just let him gamble from time to time. That's what he did last year, and a lot of times it paid off. You know, once in a while he'd get burned when he went for, you know, a passing lane that didn't go his way, but he's a difference maker. I mean, he's a guy who's maybe not necessarily the most vocal leadership guy. That's something he could probably grow into. He'll get every opportunity, I think, to do that this coming year. And I think I mentioned earlier, Valdez, you know, if he can make another jump this year from, last year he went from a guy, a bench role player guy, to being, you know, one of their go-to guys every night.
Absolutely.
And you can see him struggle with that here and there, but, you know, he ended up shooting a fair percentage, and sometimes he'd have some inconsistencies, big nights followed by, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. So if he can kind of, you know, be a little more consistent, I think he was getting adjusted to being the role of a go-to guy. I mean, that's not something that can just happen overnight and you thrive. I think that's something he could potentially do this coming year. And grow into, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, and what about the two big guys, Yankovic and Jovanovic? How prominent is their role going to be? And like you said, are they going to need just another guy, another recruit in there to help them down low?
Well, Stefan Yankovic, I think his talent speaks for itself.
Absolutely.
You know, he can hit from very long range, and I think he kind of psyched himself out at times last year. He would maybe pump fake when he didn't need to pump fake, and could have had a pretty clean look at a 3-ball. And when he's open, he drains them pretty consistently. So, and Jovanovic, you know, guys get them mixed up all the time, but their games are quite different. You know, Jovanovic is a back to the basket guy. He's a true post banger. And they could maybe use one more of those guys in that vein to really, you know, soak up some fouls or, you know, play physical down low. Yankovic isn't necessarily that guy. You know, they'd still like him to rebound more. He can grow into that a little bit. But he's a definite playmaker. I mean, he's a guy they could dump the ball to at the end of the shot clock and make something happen. Those guys, especially early on in the year, that was kind of something the team struggled with before Yankovic became eligible. A guy they could go to in that kind of situation. So with Coach Ganot's emphasis on shooting, I think they're going to work with Yankovic a lot this year on when to you know, do his thing. And I think once they figure out what they expect from each other, he could have a big year as well.
All right, Justin, you got a question?
Well, we see that the talent that UH has, you know, offensively and defensively, you know, it is the NBA playoffs. You know, we see a lot of college athletes go to the draft and go to the pros. Who do you feel from this team's, UH's basketball team that could potentially be a pro prospect?
Yeah, so like we talked about, Negus did, you know, decide to go pro, but as far as future guys, I think, like we were just talking about with PJ, Yankovic is a guy who could, you know, make a lot of money for himself in the pro ranks. at some stage, you know, whether he sticks it out through his senior year or maybe if he has a big year as a junior. We'll see. There's still a lot of room for growth there. By no means is he a finished product, but he's the guy who maybe has the tools to be, you know, a pretty good pro player, I think.
And we also got to give big props to Isaac Foltu as well.
Oh, sure.
Especially for him being able to just transfer his game and potentially be one of the guys to get picked in the draft or just get on the NBA team.
Yeah, he did well in Spain this past year. You know, he went to play pro right when he was declared ineligible by UH or a couple days after, and ended up latching on with a pretty good team in the Spanish league, Zaragoza. I think, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Then he was loaned to another team lower in the standings, but that allowed him to have a more prominent role in that team. So he got a lot of experience under his belt in a great league. I mean, Spanish league is one of the best pro leagues in the world. So, you know, if he sticks it out in that country, you know, guys often change countries year to year. He could end up in a number of places this coming year, but it was a strong start for Foltu, and he is mentioned as, you know, a guy who, at least in the one draft website I read, was one of the top foreign guys in his kind of category of, you know, who's already put in a pro year that probably won't get drafted in the 2 rounds of the NBA draft, but at least, you know, some people noticed him, and you got to give Isaac props for what he's done so far.
Absolutely. Along the same lines of that same question, what do you think Isaac Fleming's upside is as a freshman last year? I mean, potentially with his growth over the next 3 years, you think he could be an NBA type player or definitely overseas player?
If he puts it all together, you know, I think he's just got to work on his shot selection a little bit at times. As we saw, he's great driving to the basket. I mean, some of those lefty finishes he made this past season were incredible. You know, he was named to the Diamond Head Classic All-Tournament team, had a great tournament, some of his best games all year. He was hampered a little bit by injuries late last season. You know, there was that one game where like 3 guys had ankle injuries. He was one of them, probably the most severe of the 3, I believe. But Isaac Fleming, I mean, he's a guy who came a long way to play here, and if he and Coach Gannat can get together and, you know, figure out what Coach Gannat expects of Isaac, and if Isaac buys in, then we could see considerable growth, I think, from year to year for him. You know, it's so early on in his career. He was old for a freshman, you know, 21.
Right.
But sky's the limit for him if he can figure it out and, you know, minimize the techs and just kind of buy in, like I said.
Absolutely. Well, we're here with Star-Advertiser beat writer Brian McInnis once again, and my man Justin Baptiz talking some UH basketball, some hoop talks about UH basketball, the transition from the Gib Arnold era to the Benji Taylor era, and now to the new era underneath new head coach Eran Gannat. When does the season get underway? We've got about a minute left, and you know, what's your overall outlook for the season?
To be determined.
To be determined.
I guess that's kind of a little bit of a cop-out, but there's a lot to, you know, still be done this offseason between, you know, bringing in a couple more guys, finishing the schedule.
Absolutely.
We do have a few more months to go. You know, it's only early mid-June, and season will start, you know, pretty much the start of November, you know, late October, start of November. So those preseason weeks of practice will be critical. I mean, Coach Gannat's been able to work with them in small groups before everybody went back to the mainland or their respective countries for the summer.
Right.
Still a lot that I know he wants to drill into these guys. You know, it was only a taste, really, of getting to know each other to this point. And my guess would be there'll be some growing pains, you know, as everybody figures each other out. But, hey, I think people should at least give Coach Gannat a chance to carry on the success they had last year in a, you know, trying season with a lot of controversy. So tip your cap to the guys from last year and Coach Taylor for what they did. But it's, you know, it's kind of a clean break, you know, totally new coaching staff. And they'll have their opportunities to succeed. It's just a matter of how soon. So.
Absolutely. Well, Brian, always been a pleasure to have you on the show. Come back anytime. You're more than welcome. And Justin, of course, you're my right-hand man, and we're going to wrap it up here on Hawaii Sports Update. Star-Advertiser writer Brian McInnis here on Hoop Talks with Justin and Paul Jackson, PJ. Hui ho.
Yep.